Well, it's good to have Brock back from a week in Italy, and we are excited. I'm especially excited to hear what you think about some of these draft picks. Obviously, we got an opportunity to talk about Jadarian Price and what they did in the first round, but after that, we were like, okay, kind of hoping maybe there'd be an edge defender in there. We talked about a lot of possibilities for that number 64 pick. Bud Clark's name didn't come up, and yet kind of talking to DJ last week, he felt like the Seahawks got great value with both their second and third and maybe even fifth round picks. He felt great about those.
He did. I think you asked him specifically. I saw the clip of that, and he went back to, well, this is where he was on my board. This is where he was picked. And every one of those guys was picked after where he had them, those three in particular. I knew as we got closer, and I think I kind of hinted at it on Twitter and everything, I knew that Neal would be a guy that if it just didn't match up in the, Chris Johnson didn't match up, obviously he goes. It didn't match up with some of the edge guys, that he would be a guy in that third round that they kind of looked kind of late third round value with just a body type. I mean, he's just different. Right, Reek was really long. This kid they're going to convert, I'll get to him, Blue 88 to corner is really long. But you're talking about in Julian Neal, he just looks like he's a Bay Area dude, and he just looks like like an old school Pac-10 basketball guard, like sturdy, like 6'2", 200 pounds, long arms, just, like the guy you saw on the playground playing hoops, that's just strong. And they don't really, in that corner room, Nehemiah Pritchett's littler, Josh Job's littler, Spoon obviously pound for pound's a freak show, but he's littler. Like, kind of nice to get a big body and somebody that I know all the way along that they were pretty excited about and probably pretty stoked that he was on the board there in the third round.
Yeah. The best part of it is the Bud Clark, Julian Neal show. These two guys are hilarious. There is an element. First of all, they're going to be great on Hard Knocks, as you predicted. Yes, I think that may be why they were drafted. I don't know. Who knows?
Thank you.
There is an element of Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman, young Earl, young Richard to each of them, and put Bud in the Earl Thomas role. He was asked about what he thought of Julian Neal when they first met.
Man, I was like, who is this big old corner, bro? I was trying to see because I'm a safety. He bigger than me. I was like, you show big dog. But I feel like getting to know him has been amazing. I feel like we've grown our friendship, grown our teammateship with it. So I feel like we're going to be great together.
You know what's funny?
There's a little Earl there.
There is a little Earl. He's TCU guy.
There's a little bit of Earl. And then let me play you the Julian Neal to go with it, Brock. So this was the other side of it. Julian Neal, who's got a little sherm to him. I'll get to that in a sec. Talking about being locker mates with Bud Clark.
So, me and Bud, so we both trained down there in Texas, but he trained at a different spot, like 10 minutes away from mine. So I used to go down there and get some work in with DB. So I kind of already knew him. Met him at the Senior Bowl. Man, that dude, he's different, man. He's in a good way. He's just lively. He's a great teammate. I'm sitting right next to him at my locker, and he's just, he's a different type of guy. I'm excited to play with him and be able to get on the field with him this season.
Let me give you
he's
one
different
more.
Kind of guy.
Hold on, let me give you one more. They also asked Julian Neal, because he was great right after the draft, right? He said he was the most physical corner in the draft, and they asked him if that's sort of like the norm for who he is.
That's real Julian Neal. That's I told you, that's a pure reaction. You could just imagine how I am on the field. It's just, like I said, watch the film, turn on the tape. But that's old news. I'm ready to get a fan something new to look forward to. I really want to bring it for the fans and just for this organization and bring another Super Bowl.
Third person.
Not really. That doesn't count.
Oh, it doesn't?
No. He was asked, is that you? And he's saying, yeah, that's the real Julian Neal. I don't know. I'm not going to quite call that third person.
Yeah.
But it's third person adjacent.
Well, they're big personality and they're lively. So there's a few things that collectively, and then we can get into if you want to get into any individual. But I think collectively it was remarkable to me as I was going through this yesterday on the plane, just kind of in totality, a few things. Number one, a lot of juice. I mean, just a lot of energy, right? Just a lot
Tons.
of in their own different ways. Those two, the headliners with it, but got kind of their own. Bo Stevens got a hell of a story. Jadarian's got a heck of a story, right? His upbringing as we talk to him and all of that. Those two live wires, right? There's just kind of a lot of juice. Secondarily, there's a lot of speed. I mean, every one of these guys, it'd be funny if they had a foot race. And at the combine, they do that deal at the end of it where they'll mirror guys or they'll put that little collage of guys running the 40. How about Jadarian Price 4.49, Bud Clark 4.41, Julian Neal 4.49, Henderson 4.44, Fuller 4.44. Like, I mean, all of those guys are right there. They're all in that same group. And then just a couple big old dudes, right? Devin Eastern, kind of a project. We'll see. Practice squatty. I think those 7th-round picks, frankly, were all, and this came out afterwards. Brady did a nice job in his observations. They were all guys that they targeted because they probably weren't going to get them as undrafted free agents with the depth in that room and the quality of the room. So it was a way to get those guys into that kind of tier and grouping. But yeah, just collectively, a lot of juice and then a bunch of speed. And John's right. John's right. That piece of that Brady wrote, he's right. Like, they learned something the first time around. When you have continuity, we can go back and see this worked, this didn't work. You know what? This was good. Let's sharpen this edge here. And think about those 4 third-round picks that year they took. Nice guys. Amara Darboh, a bunch of our old running back was out of Notre Dame was in that group. And I mean, a nice group of guys, but didn't have this kind of like juice. Mm-hmm. Remember how to practice? We'd watch them, and a number of times, like, oh, they're not really dancing. There's not really much.
No, they were
coming up.
They were intimidated. I mean,
yes.
they were around these guys that had won a Super Bowl and had big personalities. John talked about it, and we played some of the sound last week of him saying, "Yeah, we absolutely looked for guys that weren't going to be intimidated coming in here, and you can see it, you can feel it." You can see it with Jadarian Price and hear it in all of his comments. I mean, we talked to him obviously 2 weeks ago now when you were here. He was as mature as any kid that age I've ever talked to on the radio. It like blew me away. Can't stop talking about it. And then hearing, just as you just said, the juice and the confidence that comes from these two guys.
Mm-hmm. Now, that's a little different. Some of this will be a little tempered in a week or two.
Of course. But you got to start with some of this.
I remember coming out of rookie minicamp going, whoo, I got this thing licked. This isn't that big a deal. And then the first minicamp practice game with the veterans, I was like, oh yeah. When Julian Neal lines up against JSN, how am I going to guard that?
But all right, but don't you have to have the confidence going in to even be able to hold your own when you get there? Don't you have to have that Bud Clark energy? Yes. Don't you have to have some of that stuff, or else you're toast?
And Bud Clark's an intriguing one because I did see him a bunch, right, at TCU. I did a bunch of Gary Patterson games through the years.
So tell me about this guy.
Yeah, so he was like a high school, one of these just kind of athletes, right? Just baseball and some QB and just kind of like the best athlete. So you're just going to go play ball. He's probably like a shortstop center fielder. He was the quarterback in high school. And Gary Patterson targeted a lot of these guys. So that was kind of his MO at TCU is I'm not Oklahoma, I'm not Texas, so let me just find these really good Texas and in that area just athletes. They were always kind of the best athletes, maybe a little undersized, right? I mean, 6 foot, 188. He's got a little bit of a spoon kind of twitch and body to him. He's lean. I mean, he's not, but he's just a ball player, just a ball hawk. And 15 picks kind of point to that scheme at TCU that they put those safeties at. They gave him a lot of freedom. Hey, man, this is, you're going to do a lot of read, a lot of react. We're going to do a lot of kind of, what Mike likes to do of taking away routes and you're going to have half the field to do that. So he brings a bunch of that. And then, as you mentioned, and it's easy to hear, quite a bit of confidence.
You have any concern, and I hate to ask the question because it makes it sound like I'm concerned, but you have any concern that their top 2 picks were for arguably the 2 least valuable positions in the NFL, at least according to the way they're paid? They went running back, safety.
I have a little less concern because the number 5 pick and the number 20 pick 3 years ago in the draft, we had these same conversations, right? Like,
but this
little concern that corner, nickel, and wide receiver.
But these are
pick.
Those, I think people would generally rank corner and receiver ahead of safety and running back. Like, these are the 2 positions that get paid the least.
Yeah. I would say for Bud Clark, he'll be a little bit of that kind of Kobe Bryant, a little bit of, he's not as gifted as Spoon is, but a little bit of that, hey, man, you need to play some nickel, you need to play some safety. He's not a corner, but you need to play some of those spots.
I think you can
versatility.
also just argue, look, those are 2 positions they didn't want to pay in free agency. You still have to have them. They may not be valued in the market the way some other positions are, but if you're not going to pay Kobe Bryant and you're not going to pay Ken Walker, which, by the way, I agree with, then you still need to find good players at those positions. And personally, I think especially the safety position is undervalued in the NFL.
Well,
so
I think
I like the moves.
McDonald said they're not only going to play him at safety. So you're
Correct.
you're getting that hybrid ability.
Yep, a little bit of versatility. So what was Kobe? 4 years and $50 million or close to it. This is going to be 4 years and $8 million.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's what. Yeah, now it does come at the expense of maybe having drafted something else. The kid from the edge player from Michigan was there. One of the two, not Derek
Barham,
Moore,
not the
Barham
first one. So
was
that's
there.
the other thing. Let me just say this: looking at my 12 players I profiled, they were all gone.
They were all gone.
Other than Barham, who ended up going about 6 picks ahead of him, and that might have been a possibility in the 3rd round. That and maybe they would have come up in the 4th and maybe traded for Neal into the 4th, like they did for Stevens into the 5th. Maybe I don't know that for sure, but I do know that Barham was on their board, and I do know that I was a little bummed sitting on the airplane when he went, I think like 92-ish to the Cowboys, and just a couple picks before him. Like could that have been a possibility? Yeah, and he's a project. He's not going to come in and help this year, right? I mean, he's 1 year of playing the edge at Michigan. That was going to be, a little bit
But you can
of
also
some
just
development.
look at this and say, all right, well, Dante Fowler is available, and they seem to like him, and he had a pretty good year last year. Cam Jordan's available. Kyle Van Noy is available. Jadeveon Clowney's available. Von Miller is available. I mean, like, there's just so many short-term options that you can sort of afford to kick that can down the road a little bit.
A little bit.
Not forever. I mean, next year I think it probably becomes a priority, and we'll see what happens with all the guys they've got now. But if this wasn't the right draft for it didn't fall your way, then I like what they did, and super excited about this group of dudes. All right.